Merry Meet. This is Lady Tehila from the Coven of the Open Mind, and you're watching Sabbats 101. Hail and welcome. Yule is the pagan version of Christmas. It's sort of a blurred line. There's been a lot of, let's call it, cultural appreciation both ways. Some things that have Christian roots, like the story of St. Nicholas, they have in the modern age taken on entirely pagan themes, like Santa Claus, who is essentially a fairy that brings gifts to those who are kindly. Even the theme of leaving the milk and cookies out on the table, an offering, feels decidedly pagan. But then there are some things that feel so pagan and yet really do have Christian origins, like the Christmas tree. I mean, pagans have been bringing in garlands and bows of holly and plants that are green the whole year round for far longer than Christianity has placed a star on the top and called it Christmas. Holly, firs, juniper, mistletoe, all sorts of green shrubbery brought indoors and kept alive indoors, all different kinds of plants that do well without full root systems and can handle living indoors for a time. And they brought them in to help keep the air inside of the house pure and less stuffy, because many people were cramped together in small living quarters during the winter months. However, the modern Christmas tree, covered in popcorn and baubles, that was first brought indoors actually by the Lutherans in Germany. And this was in the very early modern age, and they used to put on mystery plays. Get it? Like Seek Ye the Mysteries, right? So people have always sought the mysteries. And one of the things they used to do, they used to act out these reenactments of the Bible, of Genesis, and all sorts of things to honor Adam and Eve because it was their name day. So they, would put on plays, and the decorations that they had in the background of those plays would have apples on the tree to symbolize, the original sin, right? The idea of wanting knowledge more than you want peace or whatever. There's a lot of depth to that, for better or worse. Eve took the apple off the tree, so they put apples on the tree to celebrate that act. And then they also would put wafers on the tree to celebrate the redemption of Christ and how the body of Christ coming to earth, as God it's part of their mythology, right? So these are really, a Christian way to honor the god and goddess, occurring on the winter solstice, the day of the literal birth of the sun, right? I.e. the first day that the sun is rising earlier than the previous day, and the days are growing longer. So the birth of the Son of God was a fitting alignment with the name day of Adam and Eve and pagan celebrations of the rebirth of the light. So Christmas cribs representing Jesus became less common as more and more people made room to purify the air with fresh greenery in addition to celebrating the holiday. So apples, eventually they were replaced by shiny balls of glass and metal and candy canes, and candles eventually made their way onto the tree. Most people could not afford wafers, so they would string together popcorn, and eventually were left with the modern day Christmas tree that you know today. And that's why a lot of pagans and Wiccans and witches do still celebrate Christmas. And Santa, of course, visits their houses like he does for everyone who believes in him. But this arbitrarily decided upon December 25th day to kind of honor fairies and gift giving differs greatly from the themes of rebirth that are found within the religious holiday of Yule. So sermons this time of year, Christian sermons, often do have some of these same themes, but of course most Wiccans don't engage with those themes in that way. Most Wiccans celebrate Yule with their friends and family, and sometimes with their covens on or around the winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year in terms of daylight hours. Ritual is usually held right at the crack of dawn, which thankfully this time of year is not that early. Ritual is usually held on the shortest day. Sometimes it's held at the crack of dawn on the day after the shortest day, which is the first longer day. That's when they do the ritual. Afterwards is a morning feast. This is usually a time to exchange some gifts and just spend time with the family, and possibly have like a daytime fire where you may burn a Yule log. So many will spend the day of Yule Eve. They'll spend that day doing crafts, decorating the indoors, often decorating an elaborately carved or decorated log called the Yule log, which can be made from wood and put into a fire and burned. That's very common. They burn it often the next day during the daytime fire. But it can also be a cake. That you can make like a log cake, which is really fun. And I usually try to make a log cake every Yule, but sometimes we do a real Yule log too. So on the eve of Yule, everyone gathers to have mulled mead, cider, spiced wine. You exchange gifts, you sing songs, you come together to just stay warm and be merry in spite of the fact that there are long, cold, dark nights every night going on throughout the season. Decorations include exactly what you'd expect considering the overlap between Christmas and Yule. Things like bows of holly, mistletoe, shiny baubles, candles, tinsel. Stockings are actually not really a Yule thing. We have stockings, we use them. Santa fills up our stockings, of course. But if you put out stockings and you believe in Santa, they get filled. That's how it works, right? So that's more of a Christmas thing, though. It's kind of more of Christian origins with the stockings, with the theme of St. Nicholas. So a lot of Wiccan and pagans don't really hang stockings or do the stocking thing. Some of them have the elf on the shelf, or like the games that involve the little dolls that you like move around and reposition. There's a lot of games like that in pagan families. Playing games is very common during Sabbats and holidays. There's often, gift exchanges that look like handing small, inexpensive tokens to each other, things that just show that you were thinking of someone, not like huge expensive things most of the time. And they can often be homemade or crafted or grown yourself, or like they'll have sentimental value. That sort of thing is what usually you would give someone on Yule. The theme of parading outside with carols, going around and singing in exchange for treats from strangers on the streets, going to people's doors and singing to them, that has pagan origins, and that comes from the idea that nobody should be alone on Yule. So mumming is less common. Mumming, when you like go around in costume or you exchange clothes or you're like acting out a skit or something, like mumming is less common this time of year because it's really cold. So people just wanted to wear their coats and their cloaks and not worry about like what they were wearing. And also because people were often too drunk to coordinate a mumming because it was cold and mead is warm. So caroling, not mumming for Christmas. Foods associated with the holiday include, of course, as we said, spiced wine, anything with cinnamon, ginger, orange peel, other seasonings, like that, allspice and the like, cloves, warm apple cider, hot chocolate is very common, drinks that have a lot of sugar, that have comforting vibes. A lot of people will eat fruit pies and fruit preserves with crackers and things that, a sign of the bounty of the harvest that has now been preserved and stored away. Many will have cheese and meat trays, as this was originally a hunt holiday and the start of the hunting season. That's in like the original Norse traditions. So in the more agricultural reasons, it was maybe less about the hunt, but meat still plays a prominent role on the feast table because, it was recently butchered and preserved, and there's still plenty of fresh meat lying around, ready to cook up and to serve at the feast. Baked treats, things which cook in the oven, are very common, since the oven can keep the homestead or covenstead very warm and cozy all day long if filled with large birds or whole pigs or other roastables. Popcorn and things which can be hung up from strings, candy canes, making your own candy, toffee, that's a common thing. Some of the scents you all know, cinnamon, pine, evergreen scents, just things that feel homey and fresh as well. Mistletoe is a popular mark used to represent ridding the old and embracing the new, which is why you kiss under it for good luck. That's like starting a new relationship, right? Poinsettias are a popular flower. They bloom in the late fall, and they add a splash of that perfect red color. So they represent strength and vitality, like blooming even in the midwinter. So those usually make their way onto the altar, into the room. Bells are common this time of year as well, representing, again, transition from old to new. Yule is the midpoint of the dark days, or the season of death. So, it's the turning point back towards the waxing, even though death energy is still most prominent until Yule. Bells and anything representing cleansing are therefore very common this time of year to signal that kind of transition of moving on to waxing from waning. Yule represents hope, thanks, and the promise of the returning spring in the sense of time. Time is passing, even if it feels like the darkness will go on forever. The exchange of gifts and goods is an expression of familial love, camaraderie, as they say, comfort and joy. Good tidings of comfort and joy. Things which bring warmth into everyone's lives and remind us to be glad for the days that push us closer together. Those spent huddled indoors, away from the treacherous cold winter. So may you all stay warm with a belly full of mead this midwinter's night. Yuletidings. And from all of us here at the Coven of the Open Mind, blessed be.